Hey guys, Fentrel here, wanting to do a video to show you a little bit of what we got planned for the upcoming reign in terms of the Ladies' War. We are doing a few changes with the Ladies' War from the Lord's War. One of the biggest changes is that the map will be visible to all the players. Another big change will be the estate system that is coming into play and the use of coins. So let's go ahead and get started real quick. First things first, we will be doing a Witcher-themed reign, which means that the three factions this time around, which there will be three, will be Nilfgaard, Redania, and Skellige. While it's not super important that you've ever played The Witcher, it would probably be helpful to kind of understand what the three factions are. So to kind of understand that, Nilfgaard is the Empire. They're a large collective of military force. They've been seeking to control the world more or less in terms of they want to control it for peace, is what they claim. Most compare them to the Empire of Star Wars in that regard. Another faction, Redania, formerly was made up of a group of oligarchs that decided to unite to try to stop the push of the Nilfgaardians. Redania wound up actually collapsing and becoming, well, not collapsing, but no longer was an alliance and became under the rule of one king through some political coercion and perhaps a little bit of backroom dealings and underhandedness. The third faction, Skellige, most closely resembles our real-world Vikings. They tend to raid other factions and are less interested in the prolonged war and more so about the here and now. The world of The Witcher, very simply, is just a world full of monsters and magic, a rather dark fantasy setting typically. In terms of what that means for Amtgard, is we'll be playing pretty standard Amtgard stuff with a little bit of a theme twist to it, but again, not super important that you really understand what's going on with The Witcher. Rules for the game. Similar to last time, you'll be able to declare for a faction. Although this time around, when you declare for a faction, there'll be no cap on what that faction can hold in it. So you'll be able to declare for whomever you want as long as they want to accept you. There's a small difference to declarations this time around, as you can actually declare for another player and not one of the large forces. But we'll get to that when I get to the estate system. The other thing that you can do this time around when you break your oath is you actually hurt the person that you break your oath with. In the case of leaving the army of one of the main lords, your ranking in that army will actually be deducted from that lord's score when you leave their army. The other thing that'll happen is if you leave a player's army, you'll lower their prestige, but we'll get to that score once again when I get to the estate system. What's it mean to serve? Well, if you're in a player's army, I assume it means you roleplay that you're in that player's army. You'll follow their orders and do the things at Park that you best could do. I can't really force teams in battle games because that makes things tend to be a little bit less fair, but it's always fun to roleplay when you get the opportunity to do so, and this kind of gives you a backdrop for doing that. In terms of what it means to serve one of the greater factions, well, we're going to be bringing back the votes for leaders to gain points. The battle games will be had at parks. This time we're shooting for an every other week battle game instead of an every week battle game. But every other week, your park will fight in one of the Kingdom battle games, and after determining the winners will get to vote for which faction will be given the point for the actual victory for the battle game. There'll be some other activities that directly contributes to the faction's winnings and losings, as well as the major events. Scrolling down here, money-wise, what we've changed. This time around, we're going to simplify the money system. If you show up to park, you get a coin. If you play in a game, you get a coin. If you reeve a game, we'll probably give you a couple coins because reeves are harder to find. Loyalists in an army, if you join one of the main factions, you'll get paid a small bonus based on your ranking in the army of 1 to 5 coins. That way it's not super overpowering, but it does allow you to gain a lot of money. Um, Monarchs in this reign are also being given the ability to add rewards to their quests in games. I'm allowing monarchs to actually directly give out reasons to give coins. Game reasons are going to be what's required. We obviously don't want to give coins for anything else, but if you do stuff inside of the game, reaving, showing up to certain promotional activities for your park, even just giving monsters loot so that the adventures are a little more interesting, we'll be allowing that this time around. Looting is being completely removed. Looting system wasn't really liked by a lot of people. The feedback on it was generally fairly negative. It was fun at the big event, and we probably will stay maintain it at the war, but in terms of the week-to-week games, looting's just not going to be a thing. Spying activity is going to continue as well. For those of you that did not get to partake in the spy or aren't aware of it, the spying activity essentially was you would take pictures, there were some questionnaires that went out, little things like that that you could earn points as a spy that would go to the intel scores of your lords, which would give them advantages. The same thing will be true this time. As a spy, if you choose to turn it in, you'll turn in your intel for whatever lord you wish to, and that lord will gain benefits from your spying. If you want to do the spying activity, you'll have to sign up for the spy group because that's where we release the missions, and that'll be found here. Similar to the battle games, I'm only expecting to release a spying activity every other week this time around, and our regent will be doing that. So depending on whether or not it's Keone or Priya, one of them will be releasing the spying activities. Assassination, I've kind of changed the rules just slightly a bit on that. It goes over the contracts will still allow you to take out bounties on players. I haven't quite figured out the rules on how assassination will affect estates yet, but it is something that's in the mind and I am working on it. Assassinations can be carried out inside of battle games. Exception is if the player is playing a monster for a battle game and not actually being their character. Obviously, you can't kill them. Outside of a battle game, only if a player is signed in and in a combat zone. Basically, to make it a little more fair, since we don't want to make it so that players can completely avoid being assassinated outside of battle games, we'll have designated zones that are non-combat zones that are areas that are safe to play in. The other thing is with assassination, players that have contracts on them, we don't want them to avoid weekly games that happen at park. So like ditch fighting, if you're on a ditch field, your assassinations won't be considered legal. That way our stick jocks and things, if you guys actually get assassinations put on you, you don't have to avoid doing the things you love about the game to avoid dying. Rules outside of the battle games, pretty standard. When you sign in, you're the class that you sign in as at the level you currently are from that point forward in the park day. Outside of battle games, you can be killed or have spells cast on you inside of combat areas only. Please talk to your monarchy at your park about what a combat area is, as they'll have to define these. Players are encouraged to spend more time in the combat areas as spells cannot be cast within the non-combat area in any way. If you're not wielding a weapon and there's a Reeve or is playing monster or has made a bit of a statement not wishing to participate for the day, they're not valid targets. We're not trying to ruin anybody's fun. We're just trying to enhance the in-between game stuff that does go on. Standard Park battle games have been significantly reduced. We essentially have done it down to this is what I'm looking for with 1 minute rot counts to remove the ability to infinitely wait for reses, standard death counts, a vote about the conclusion and victory points. There's not a whole lot to it this time. And if a park has one of the lords show up, they just become an immediate captain for one of the teams. There's no longer the rule where all of their soldiers instantly join their team. That just seemed to be unbalancing at certain parks. Here's the big part of the new system, and this is several pages. I may make a separate video going over the estate system in detail, but I'm going to go down some rudimentary things about it. Basically, with the estate system, you spend 50 coins, or if you hold a specific title, which not too many people in our kingdom do, but if you hold one of the titles in this list, you automatically will become a landowner provided you speak to your master of coin. The purpose of becoming a landowner is you kind of become a micro lord. Through the Masters of Coin, you'll facilitate a turn. Essentially, what you can do is you can spend money to build buildings on your plots of land that you'll be given. As you upgrade your building, your main building, you'll get more plots of land to build more buildings, which allows you to generate more stuff. That stuff, soldiers and things, allows you to attack other estates to break down their stuff and for prestige. As your prestige rises, you gain access to additional buildings as well as other things inside of the game. Haven't decided on all of that yet. It's a pretty simple system. It looks complicated at first, kind of like something like a Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop game, but if you get down to the meat and bones of it, it's actually not overly difficult to do. The buildings are all explained in these charts. I'm not going to go over them one by one. How combat works, you can attack a player one time each week with your Masters of Coin. Your attack is determined by rolling a d10 and adding your attack score, and you have to see what happens against the defender's defense score. If you meet or beat it, then you beat the defender. If you fail to beat it, then you lose. If the attacker fails, they lose 2 prestige automatically, which I need spell correction. And then they lose troops equal to their deficit on the dice. So if if the defense score was a 10 and you roll an 8, you lose 2 troops. The way that you lose buildings and troops is based on the tracking sheet. You build and get units in the order that you pay for them, so you don't actually get to pick where you put them on the sheet. They come in the order that you build them. As you lose them in that exact order. So if I build my manor, a house, a farm, and then nothing, the first building that'll get destroyed is number 3, a farm. The same with military. If I build several NPC troops early in the game and later I get more specialists, the specialists will be the ones to die first, unless the army dies off a little bit. I know there can be some complications with that, but that was in order to keep things simplistic. There's only 4 resources for the players: materials, weapons and armor, food, and labor, labor being the special one. Materials is something you can stockpile along with weapons and armor and food. They're pretty much straight scores, but labor is a little bit different. Labor you can only spend as much as your buildings allow you to spend in a turn. So your base building, right off the bat, is going to be the estate. Or the manor, actually, it looks like. The manor has 4 plots of land at the start, and the defense score begins at 5, without any buildings or guards added to it. You can store up to 2 labor, which means you can run 2 labor in a turn. You still have to pay for the labor, so if labor for that week is 1 coin, each labor you use costs you a coin, but your maximum stat is going to be listed here. So in this case, I have a manor and a house. A house raises my max stat by 3, so my max labor is 5. I can pay to have 5 things done for that turn, including training troops, building buildings, or otherwise using those buildings to produce materials. Troops are used or bought through spending materials, food, and weapons and armor, all things which are produced at your various buildings. It's going to take people a little while to get going unless you have amassed a lot of coin in the previous reign. And of course, players can share coin with each other. So if you're a player and you want to join the military of another player, you can donate money to them so that you guys can build an estate as a team. Each park has its own tracking sheet, and in order to attack somebody at a park, you have to be at that park. Meaning, if I want to attack somebody that's at Black Hollow, I have to travel physically to Black Hollow, talk to their master of coin, and then I can attack them. Otherwise, you can't attack a player outside of the park you're at. This also goes for the lords or ladies in this case. They'll have to travel to those parks if they wish to attack players too. The thing with the ladies is their power scores are much higher, so if they choose to come and attack you, there's a good chance you're going to be losing some things. It's best to ally with one of the other ladies to try to prevent things like this from happening. I'm hoping this kind of encourages the players to work with one another in an intriguing way, once again on a roleplay level. I will be rewarding roleplay, as well as allowing my officers to do the same. If we see you doing things like that, you could get things like free troops, free buildings, free coins, all kinds of things of that nature. I want to encourage the roleplay very much in this game. I think that about sums what I want to go over in this video. A lot of this stuff you're going to have to look over yourselves to get more in depth with it, and I am going to make a video to try to explain some of the military production and that in more in depth, but for now I thought this preliminary look over would give you guys an idea. The other thing is the ladies will be acting on this map this time, which will be public, so you'll be able to see how they're playing the overarching game and how it affects you. Your parks are physically located on the map this time and will actually affect the ladies in ways such as they're getting resources from your parks, and it allows them more attack points and more points to build from. So allegiance is going to go a long way. To control your park on this map, however, it only matters for the landowners. Estate owners actually do get to name who they're following, which they can stay neutral. But when they've named who they're following, the count of who is in lead of the park will actually control it on the map. So it does matter who your estate owners are. As always, guys, if you've got questions, feel free to send them to me. I hope you enjoyed the video. Looks like it was about 12 minutes long. I hope it gives you a little bit of an insight into what we're doing this rain. See you guys on Saturday.